Coming up on Currently, we'll discuss the unfortunate realities surrounding embezzlement across small northern Michigan nonprofits. Plus, Beth brings you the latest road construction and retail and restaurant news. That's all ahead on Currently. Welcome to Currently, where we discuss some of the top local stories directly from the journalists who are covering them. I'm your host, Christal Frost. This podcast was recorded on Thursday, August 28th. The Tigers are 78-57, still leading the AL Central. That said, things may change by the time you're watching or listening. And support for Currently comes from Golden-Fowler Home Furnishings, located on South Garfield Avenue in Traverse City. It's home fashion elevated. And from West Shore Bank. When you choose West Shore Bank, you're not just choosing a bank. You are choosing a partner committed to the well-being of our community. Visit them today on 8th Street or at westshorebank.com. Support also comes from the Coin Slot Arcade Bar in Traverse City. It's a chill hangout with a full bar in a low-key setting. Welcome, Beth Milligan from the Traverse City Ticker, head writer.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
I am so excited about our guest.
Me too.
We have a first-time Currently guest here, and I'm super excited to introduce Ms. Mardi Link. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled to have you. A journalist, a memoirist, an author, just a badass.
Juggler.
All of it.
I'll cop to that.
To that.
Yeah.
I mean, you are fantastic. You're known for your investigative reporting here in northern Michigan and across the state, really. Plus your nonfiction writing that blends true crime and memoir and, all the things.
Right.
It's like a love letter to northern Michigan at the same time of being true crime at times. And I
think so.
How do you blend that?
I'm just curious.
I like that.
I'm curious, and I have to confess, a lot of times I think people are up to no good.
That's a good journalist instinct, usually.
We probably all have that.
I would agree. I think sometimes it's easy, especially in the line of work that you both do. You're just like, wait, what's going on here? Yeah. I don't know if I buy it. You have a love of the Detroit Tigers that I just found out about.
I do. I've hardly missed a game this year.
Wow.
I have not been to Comerica Park, but I hardly miss a game on television set. We organize our daily schedule around when are the Tigers playing.
Oh my gosh.
The 10 p.m. slot is killing me because I'm an early riser. But I did want to share a family story about the Tigers.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. So my dad's been gone for about 5 years, and I was very close to him, really admired him, and I played softball, and it was because he threw a lot of grounders to me in the backyard. But we always had this family legend that he pitched in Tiger Stadium, and he was a pretty good athlete. But I never could, I just always kind of thought that's just maybe my mom bragging. Sure. And the story came from my mom, not my dad. And he didn't want to talk about it. Well, after he died, I was going through his scrapbook just at Easter time because my mom was getting rid of some stuff. And I found a letter from the Tigers farm team to Charles Link, who was my dad, saying, "Hey, Charlie, we loved having you here. This was when the Tigers played in Briggs Stadium.
Oh, my gosh.
We loved having you here." And he listed some players that really liked how my dad pitched because my dad was a pitcher and said, "We'd like to see you again." My dad was 18.
Oh, my gosh.
So he went to Western and majored in education, became a principal, assistant superintendent, all of that. And I don't know why he didn't end up playing minor league ball, but I searched through newspapers.com for my own dad, and he pitched a bunch of no-hitters in a rec league while he was a principal at a school in Battle Creek.
Oh, my gosh.
So my youngest son is a big sports fan, so he has that letter and the envelope to my dad framed in his man cave where all of his sports memorabilia is. So when I watch the Tigers, it just makes me feel close to my dad.
Oh, absolutely. I wonder why he didn't tell you.
I don't know. He also played for Western Michigan when he was at college, and he pitched in the College World Series.
Wow.
And he's got the ring and everything. And I said, "Dad, why didn't you ever talk about it?" And he said, "Because we lost."
Oh.
They lost to Wake Forest. This was 1955.
So it was done.
It was done.
It was settled.
Yeah, it was over.
Wow.
Nothing to crow about.
What an incredible story. I wonder if you'll ever write a book about that.
I may write, maybe I'll write an essay or
There
something.
you go.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, we are going to start with you, and you wrote a story. This one is for Bridge, and I heard you actually talking to Ed, a friend of the show from IPR News, about this on the radio as well. This is a really kind of disturbing story about the prevalence of hundreds of thousands of dollars being embezzled from Michigan rural nonprofits. And I thought maybe we would just start from the beginning and talk about, what is happening with this, examples of the embezzlement and where it's happening.
Well, the numbers are large, 70,000, 150,000, 26,000, but it's kind of flown under the radar because a lot of these are in remote locations or they're one-offs. It happened one time, or the nonprofits don't necessarily want to publicize that they've been embezzled because they depend on donor support.
They want people to trust them with their money.
Right.
So how is this happening in the first place? I mean, if we can just think about embezzlement, that is, stealing money that you're not authorized to take, right? I mean, it's stealing. And it happens in nonprofits oftentimes where you have maybe a lack of checks and balances, which is pretty regular for local, regional, rural nonprofits that quite simply can't afford to have a lot of people on staff.
Right, yeah.
So kind of talk us through that. I mean, you interviewed several nonprofits for this, and I mean, what seemed to be sort of the through line?
Well, I think there's this kind of dichotomy that on the one hand, a lot of these organizations just have 1 or 2 or 3 employees. Maybe they're new, or maybe they've stayed small on purpose because they want to spend the money helping people or completing their mission. But on the other hand, when one person takes on a lot of jobs, that's when a lot of these embezzlement cases have happened because there's no checks and balances. The same person is going to the bank, depositing the checks, reconciling the accounts, doing the annual budget, and that leaves room for someone who either is in it to make money for themselves or just a crime of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be too. I mean, what you wrote about were a lot of people on staff, doing this. But have you noted anybody who maybe is a board member who there's not a lot of checks and balances on these small local boards that are also working boards that are maybe doing the accounting or, things like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, the case that I reported on that really hit me just right here was Club Cadillac, which is a professional and a social organization for people recovering from mental illness. They do so many great things. They have work clothes for people that might have a job interview and maybe they don't have the right clothing to do the job interview. They have job training. They have different social interactions that people maybe are uncomfortable with. And they run a snack bar where they make money and deposit it into an account for them to use for conferences and things like that. They also hold bake sales for the same reason. And it's actually the board treasurer who is being charged.
Oh my gosh.
And that case is still going through the court system, so there's no outcome yet. But the idea that somebody within an organization would steal from people who are already, on the one hand, vulnerable, and on the other hand, working to build their lives is just, I can see how that was just devastating to the members.
Absolutely. You said that is a case that is currently going through, the court system right now.
Right.
And I think that the jury trial is scheduled for maybe October 10th. But I'm wondering about the many, many cases that never go reported. And you kind of hit on this in the beginning of the conversation that maybe, nonprofits don't want people to think that they can't trust them with their donations. They rely on people's trust. But at the same time, there are people who are getting away with this because they won't prosecute. So can you talk about that balance and, why some nonprofits are choosing to keep it out of the courts and therefore out of the media?
Right. I think they just are worried that their financial support they depend on donations. And if I'm a charitable giver, if I'm giving money to a nonprofit, I might question if they were being embezzled. However, a lot of the professionals I talked to said, you can regain donor support, or you might not even lose it if you show them this happened to us. Here's what we're doing about it.
And transparency.
Yeah, right. And particularly in the case of the lighthouse, the Point Betsy Lighthouse, I talked with the prosecutor of Benzie County. Her name is Sarah Swanson, and she said, they gift wrapped the case to me. They did everything right.
Yeah.
They paid for a forensic. Well, first of all, they contacted the police.
Yeah.
They paid for a forensic audit. They wrote letters to the court once their executive director was being sentenced. They came to court to the sentencing hearing and spoke out loud, and they kept really good records.
Yeah.
And so if I was somebody that gave to that organization, I would still be giving to them because they've really handled it well.
That's the thing. You mentioned the forensic audit. So, calling the police and saying, I think a crime has been committed is one step, right? But oftentimes it does fall on the nonprofit to hire an outside auditor to do a complete forensic audit of all of the, cash that's going in and going out. And that can take a long time depending on the size of your organization, and it can be very costly.
It can be.
So that's not something that the investigators will do necessarily. That's something that the organization has to do. And is that something that maybe deters them from prosecuting? Because quite frankly, they just got robbed and they can't afford to put more money.
Too. Yeah. Those are all expensive.
Yeah. I would say that that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that is something to think about when you're building your board.
Mm-hmm.
Look for somebody that has these skills. People, if people want to serve on the board and you have an opening, look for somebody that has these skills. I know in one of the, I don't want to reveal which one because she asked me not to, but in one of the places I interviewed, they had a friend who was a retired FBI agent, and that person did the forensic audit for free.
Oh, wow.
So look for people like that, I would say, nonprofits. But it is expensive. In some cases, it turns out to be worth it, though, if you get your money back.
I was going to say, I was really struck by some of the statistics you had in your story that, 41% of cases, that's on the low end, have been solved between, you said 2019 and 2023. So that's, almost 60% that haven't been solved.
Right.
And a lot of times organizations or companies will just fire someone or let them resign and kind of go their separate ways. But you kind of pointed out there's two drawbacks to that. One of which is that they could go do that to a different organization.
Yes.
So there is a real impetus for prosecution, maybe to not only help your organization, but stop another organization from suffering the same fate.
Yes.
In the future. And then also restitution, at least through the court system, you might have a chance of restitution.
Correct.
Of some of the funds at least.
Right.
How common is that, though? I'm just wondering how often these organizations are actually being paid back. Is it common, or is it something that you just kind of hope for?
Right. Yeah. Well, to report this story, I did use a little bit of what I learned when I did a big series on guardianship for the Record Eagle, and that was about how many vulnerable people have guardians who then empty their retirement and their savings accounts. And so I watched those cases go through the court system and want restitution, and some got it and some didn't. Interestingly, once somebody is off probation, if they haven't paid back all of that restitution, a lot of prosecutors will not do what's called show cause hearings and bring those people back to court and say, hey, you still owe $3,000, you still owe $5,000.
Really?
Where is that money coming from? Once they're off probation, a lot of times the rest of that restitution doesn't get paid.
Is there a reason they're being granted, being discharged from probation when they haven't paid their fines?
That's a really good question. and probation isn't always tied to restitution.
Okay. Yeah.
So that would be something to think about. The other thing I learned was that up in the Upper Peninsula, a prosecutor there said, you can, to the person who was convicted, you can spend less jail time if you come back to your sentencing hearing with all the money.
Yeah.
It was $70,000. He did come back with the money, and
Wow.
instead of getting what she said, throw the book at him, he got 3 years, and I think some of that maybe that was lessened, but prosecutors can be creative in situations like that, and that really helped the fire department, the volunteer fire department, get all of their money back.
it's such a betrayal at the end of the day. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what it feels like. It's these are trusted people within your organization. They're staff, they're volunteers. They're people that you share at least a similar passion, right? Because you're all either working for or volunteering with the same organization. And, you know, in the case of the fire department where you had someone embezzling, I mean, there's a brotherhood, there's a sisterhood within the fire service, and that must have been a huge betrayal.
I know. And that prosecutor said to me, they were really hurt and they weren't really interested in an overly tough jail sentence. They wanted their money back. They wanted something, you know, they wanted some punishment, but they were devastated. And the other thing, too, is a lot of people who work for nonprofits are not in it for the money.
Right.
They're in it for the mission.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you're also stealing from that mission. You're not just stealing money. You're stealing from that mission, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, I think, I mean, maybe a good, I would love to share some of the things that you shared at the end of your article, just as like tips or takeaways for folks. I mean, this article really made me think. I was involved with a small startup nonprofit several years ago, and it's really made me think about conversations we had, because you're right. A lot of times, especially when a nonprofit is new or they're just learning like board governance or trying to get like systems and structures in place, sometimes it's innocent not knowing. I mean, I remember running a merch table and having like thousands of dollars with me at the night, and I, you know, next day telling our board, we need to have a better system.
Yeah.
I don't want to be responsible for that money, and someone who's not as trustworthy as me could have done anything with it.
Right.
So I think sometimes organizations sort of realize, oh, we don't know what we don't know until we get to that point with financial controls. But you had some really good suggestions about embezzle proofing your organization. I wondered if maybe you'd want to share some of those tips.
I think first off, have a whistleblower policy so that when somebody is suspicious, they feel comfortable coming forward.
Very important.
Instead of being worried that they're going to be ostracized by their colleagues or fired or not believed. But have a whistleblower policy, take people seriously, and try to divide job responsibilities. One place told me, we don't have the accountants go to the bank. And somebody else opens the mail. And another person logs all and some of these are volunteers, you know, another person logs all the credit card slips and the checks.
Right.
So kind of divide and conquer. You know, the accountants at this place could see all the online transactions, but they couldn't move any money or withdraw any money.
Wow. I mean, that's really spreading it around.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, we mentioned maybe, you know, when you have one person who has many, you know, different jobs. But I also would say to speak up if something just doesn't feel right either. And I've encountered situations where maybe the person who is handling the books is dating the person who is maybe managing the organization. And you're like, whoa. Not to say anything's going on, but that doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, it's okay to say, this doesn't feel right.
Right. And if somebody buys a brand, I mean, in one of the guardianship cases I covered years ago, this woman had a brand new, you know, $500,000 house, and she had moved from something nowhere near that pricey. And so there are also there may be some exterior clues. I did want to mention, as far as the journalism angle of reporting this story, private nonprofits do not have to respond to Freedom of Information requests, which I'm sure the two of you know that.
Yeah.
But so in order to report this story, I couldn't get anything that wasn't either in the court system or that people were willing to share with me.
Wow.
And so that may be one reason these things are reported on the way that government is reported on, because all of these records are private.
Right.
Although that is one of the things that is a tip, is have as much public as you can. And not just for people like me who want to read through your documents, but for your supporters to know this is what they talked about at the board.
Yeah.
You know, here's their budget. I can read it if I want to. I can see where my money is going. So I would encourage nonprofits to be transparent with their documents.
I was glad that was going to be the last thing I was going to plug too. I was glad you said that, because, you know, you can, you know, journals can look up IRS records and things like that for nonprofit and kind of get some of their like annual reports. But I think making it readily available, does help your donors, but it does help journalists. And sometimes journalists are the eyes that can be like, wait, that doesn't make sense, scanning a document, or why did the budget suddenly go from that to that, or whatever it might be. So if you're really interested in transparency, sometimes you'll have conversations in nonprofit that are planning or confidential, but like you said, as much as privacy rules allow, putting those documents out there.
Yeah. I mean, some nonprofits deal with people's personal information too, or their medical information, and that certainly is private and shouldn't be released. But there's plenty of things that people are interested in and they could make public.
Yeah. Very, very well done. And if anyone wants to read this, you can find, we're going to have a link in this podcast, so you can find it that way. But you just go to bridgemi.com. And thank you so much for your reporting on this. We're going to be back with a look at road construction, my favorite subject, and also retail and restaurant roundup. But right now, a word for our headline sponsor, Golden-Fowler Home Furnishings. And listen, by now, you know how much I love making my home feel warm and inviting. It's my happy place. And honestly, a big part of that comes from Golden-Fowler Home Furnishings right here in Traverse City. Their pieces aren't just furniture. They're handcrafted, American-made designs that bring character, comfort, and style to every corner of your home. And right now is the perfect time to stop in because it's their all-American Labor Day sale. You'll save big on high-quality American-made furniture across every department, even custom orders. So whether you're dreaming of a cozy new living room setup, upgrading your dining space, or just adding that finishing touch to make your home feel a little bit more like you, Golden-Fowler has it. They've been our community's go-to place for beautiful, lasting furniture for generations, 65 years. And when you shop with Golden-Fowler, you're supporting true American craftsmanship. So come celebrate the season of home with All-American Labor Day sale this weekend, going on now through Labor Day at Golden-Fowler Home Furnishings on Garfield Avenue in Traverse City. Trust me, you'll find furniture that you will love to come home to. And welcome back to Currently. So we're going to shift gears here, pun very much intended, as we move into talking about road construction projects. May I just start this conversation by saying we need to get some road work done. I recently had to take my car to Junior's. Shout out to the boys at Junior's, our favorite. We love them. And I need some front end alignment work, and it's not pretty. It is not pretty. When Junior's saying, listen, I can't fix this, I know it's not good. So yeah, that's going to cost a pretty penny. And I was just thinking, I know exactly which pothole it was.
Was it on 14th Street?
Yes, it was on 14th Street. And I was like, I know exactly which one. So we're going to, take that information and talk about fixing those roads. Yeah. So tell us what's going on. I know we have 5 seasons here in Northern Michigan, all the seasons you know of, and then Orange Barrel construction season.
Which is seeming to stretch longer and longer as weather is warmer. But so, first of all, we mentioned 14th Street on the show last week. At the time, we didn't know when the construction was going to start on that, and it turned out to be just a few days later. So construction on 14th did start on Monday this week. So just know that in that corridor, there are sections of it that are kind of closed off that you have to detour around. That's going to be in place for a couple weeks as they get that paving work done, and then maybe less alignment work in the future for all our local drivers. But then the big one that we really highlighted that I really want to put on people's radar is the closure of US 31 out in Interlaken for the next 7 weeks or so.
This is a big one.
So this detour is going to be starting, originally they said Tuesday. I think the last I heard from MDOT, it might be Wednesday, but you'll certainly start right after the holiday weekend, see this detour going into effect. This is going to be on out on 31. It's what they're doing is, so next year, 2026 is going to be a major $32.5 million project, rebuilding almost 8 miles of US 31 from Sullivan Road to Reynolds Road. They're going to be putting a roundabout in at the J. Matty Parkway, South Long Lake Road intersection. So in anticipation of that huge project next year, they've been doing preparation work this year. So they've been paving a lot of the detour routes, the side roads around Interlaken that are going to be where the traffic is going to be detoured next year to get ready for that, putting in temporary traffic signals that are going to be used next year. The J. Maddie Parkway, I will say, as we are recording the show, they just posted that has reopened.
Wow.
At Interlaken. It's been closed to make the tunnel,
Right.
the pedestrian tunnel over at the Interlaken campus that has reopened. I will let folks know that the tunnel itself won't be open until October because they're still working on the sides of it, but the road is open. And that is a good thing because it will be a major part of this detour.
That was quick.
That was really quick.
Starting this week. So essentially, there are two bridges that have kind of unstable soil near them. It's been causing road settlement on 31. So this is the Tonawanda and the Cedar Hedge Creek bridges.
Okay.
Those are the areas that they're going to be working in. So MDOT is going to be closing 31 to traffic between the Southwest Silver Lake Road, County Road 633 intersection.
Okay.
And Gonda Road, which is past Interlaken.
So from Grawn to past Interlaken.
Yeah, so
Okay.
a pretty big stretch because those two bridges are in the middle of that stretch. If you go to traverseticker.com, we have a map. We also have a link to a high resolution map if you really want to zoom in and see where the detours are. But there's going to be detours going around using County Road 633, Euchre Road, Carlin Road, J. Maddie Parkway, Riley Road, Gonda Road. So you're kind of just, if you're going to or from Chumps Corners and Interlaken, you're going to be going around the Interlaken campus essentially to avoid that area. Now, they will have 31 open and accessible to the businesses and residences that are in that corridor.
Okay.
So if you really were stubborn about it, or you had to go in there because if you lived in there or had to go to a business in there, they will have at least one lane of traffic that you can get into that corridor to be able to turn into businesses and stuff.
Right.
But just know you're probably going to be waiting quite a bit.
So when I go to
get through this.
Rico's, I can get to Rico's.
You can get to it.
Okay.
I will say for the Interlaken folks, you should be able to cross the intersection from J. Maddie to South Long Lake. So if you need to get into Traverse City from Interlaken campus, kind of going around Long Lake Secor that way, should still be open. It's just the highway zones right around the bridges will be closed. So that's why they're making people go around if you're trying to get to like Honor or Chumps Corner.
Okay.
That's going to start Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oof.
And that will be in place until October 18th.
I mean, that's still relatively quick.
It's, yeah, I mean, considering there's, two major bridges, we have to take a bunch of soil out. They have to put a bunch of stable soil back in. So we've had some readers asking us, like, are they doing a construction project or like what's happening on the side of the road? They've seen work happening. That's them getting material. They're called borrow areas. Those are areas where contractors get materials together where they might be replacing the peat or whatever that's coming out near the bridges.
Okay.
So just know for about 7 weeks, if you're anywhere out in Grand Interlaken, you're going to have to deal with quite a few detours. They will have temporary signals activated on these side roads.
Oh, that's good.
So it's not just like, oh, take the side road and hope for the best. There will be like full traffic signals at these places to facilitate the flow of traffic.
Because if you are used to like living on South Long Lake Road and all of a sudden you can't pull out of your driveway, like that's you're going to be like, it's going to be tough. Yeah.
I live in East Bay Township and I drive to Benzie a lot.
Yeah.
So this is going to definitely affect me.
Yeah.
But you can take the back way.
I will
You'll
be.
take the back way to
Yes, I will
Benzie.
be.
It'll also be practice because next year when they're rebuilding the highway, these detours are going to be in place, sort of like what we have from Grandview Parkway this year, all year. So kind of get used to what these detour routes. And again, we have links not only to this fall's map, but next year's high resolution detour maps if you want to start planning. It's going to be a really big project. I will say for, our local folks, MDOT has put a lot of money into our region in the last couple of years. This next one on 31's next big project. Grandview Parkway is on schedule. I'll let folks know that's still on track for November. Work is still going on that. Traffic is supposed to be shifting in a couple of weeks to start using the roundabout at 22 and 72 that's going in.
I can't wait.
Once these projects are done, US 31 is really the last big one in our area for several years.
Okay.
So it's been a huge investment, but we're getting to kind of the end where things should hopefully be a little bit quieter in the future.
So then it'll just be smooth sailing.
Then it'll just be all of our local road, county road commission. And if you go to this Traverse Ticker story, I can tell you about a big project on Cass Road next year that's going to be happening between South Airport and the bridge, the Cass Road Bridge. So more to come, but the big MDOT highways, we just have this last one on 31 to get through.
All right. Well, thank you so much for keeping us up to date on that too. I know my mom lives right there, on right behind Wendy's. That's what I always tell people.
Oh, yeah.
She lives behind Wendy's. She can hear you order. She is like, how am I going to get to Chumps? She has to go to Chumps Corners to pick up medication. I'm like, well, lady, Good luck.
Yeah, I would tell her to go across to Interlaken and go around and down. It's probably going to be the way to go.
Oh, yes. Okay, that's a good. So cross at the light.
Cross at the light, go past campus, go
to
down,
Euchre.
follow the detour route, and then get back
now
on the
everybody
highway.
knows how my mom's going to get her meds.
It's important information.
Let's transition over into talking about another one of my favorite segments that you do. And you write about retail and restaurant news, I don't know, every couple of weeks. There's always stuff to write about. So tell me what's happening, what's coming, what's going, what's shaking, Beth?
Yeah. So this is one from the end of last week. It was after we recorded. So just to give some folks some updates, I will say I've got another one on deck in the ticker probably early next week.
Wow.
So stay tuned in the next couple of days. We'll have even more news coming because there's just a lot happening in Traverse City right now. But I will touch on a few highlights here at the end. We mentioned the closure of 2 popular restaurants in downtown Traverse City. So after 19 years in business, Blue Tractor is closing.
That's surprising to me.
On Union Street. What I will know is the Mission Restaurant Group, which has Blue Tractor, North Peak, Kilkenny's, Jolly Pumpkin, several restaurants in town. They are still retaining ownership there. They have talked about closing the restaurant, doing a renovation of it, and then opening under a new concept.
Oh, okay.
So that is coming. Now, this is new. This is not in my story, but it's something I saw this week. We had mentioned that the Ann Arbor Blue Tractor location had a similar announcement early this year that it was closing, but going to be opening with a new brand. They have just announced this week that is going to be a Slo's Barbecue from Detroit, very popular barbecue. Now, I have not talked to John Carlson about whether that partnership is also extending to the Traverse City location. Slo's is a very popular barbecue spot. That would be an interesting mix if they came up to Traverse City. But it could also be something else, and maybe they're just redoing the Blue Tractor brands with 2 different partnerships.
Okay.
So we don't know. That's just a possibility.
Okay.
The other one we mentioned in the story is Hex and Bell.
I know, this is so sad.
Yeah. Hex and Bell has a real, I would say almost like a cult following. People really are really loyal to the owners there. It's Middle Eastern comfort food in the Warehouse District. Their last day open is going to be on September 11th. I will note that they're closed the first week of September because they have several large catering events. So that kind of second-ish week before September 11, if you want to get your final Hex and Bell fix in, that's going to be the time to do it.
Why are they closing?
They cited a number of reasons, primarily some health issues. Feeling, staffing is always a challenge this time of year, particularly when college students go back to school. A lot of restaurants lose staff, and that's always a challenge to adjust to. So they kind of cited all of those reasons. They said it was kind of a natural point. Their lease is also coming up. So they felt it was a good time, they said, to kind of close and regroup as human beings. So we'll see what comes next for them, but there is still a little bit of time to get your final fix in there.
How about some openings? Let's end on a good note here.
Well, you know what? I'll mention one for you because I know you love Halloween.
I love Halloween. It's my favorite.
I saw Christal's picture the other day. We were talking about meeting up, and I saw her Halloween shopping. I'm like, you're already Halloween shopping in August. I love it. So we often have these seasonal Halloween stores open. That's certainly coming right after the holiday weekend. It's like hard end of summer, right into Halloween. So Spirit Halloween is going to be running a store next to K1 Speed in the Cherryland Center. And then Halloween Superstores, which for several years has operated next to Hobby Lobby up in Buffalo Ridge Center, kind of between Hobby Lobby and Oriana. They are also opening early next week. So both of those are starting up for the holidays. And then we plugged several new stores and restaurants. I'll just mention for folks, J&S Hamburg in Kingsley has just opened its doors.
Nice.
So they had their official opening this week. We mentioned an art gallery on Union Street called Art on Union. A new store that's coming next week on Barlow called The Missing Piece, which is kind of home decor, puzzles, cottage kind of treats. Yes.
I'll be going there.
Yeah. And then we also mentioned the Robin Nest, which is a new home accessory store on River Street in Elk Rapids.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Love River Street, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
I love
There's
Elk Rapids.
a lot happened in Elk Rapids.
I know. It's the best. Well, before we go, we like to end the show on a note about what you might be looking forward to in the coming week. So I will go first, if that's okay. I'm not going to steal your thunder with this, Beth, but I'm really looking forward to having a holiday weekend. It's always nice to have that extra day just to figure things out, figure out your life. And we're going to go to our family cabin with some good friends who might be sitting next to me. And I'm also taking the time to stock up my closet at Penny Lane. If you haven't been to Penny Lane, it is a great consignment shop. I have a closet there, number 4. And and I just did it for the first time this past week, and it's fantastic. So I'm going to stock up again. My husband is like, stop taking my stuff. Because I'm like, you don't need this. I'll sell it. You don't need this. I'm going to take this. So that's what I'm looking forward to. How about you, Beth?
I am looking forward to cabin weekend so much. In fact, I went today and got some of the very last Hall's corn of the season at the wagon to bring to the cabin. So I'm very excited. The other thing I'm really excited about is Jaws is my favorite movie of all time. I love it. I've seen it countless times. And it is back for its anniversary, its 50th anniversary in IMAX this next week. So I'm going to go see Jaws in IMAX.
So how do you feel about the Jaws pinball machine?
It's one of my favorite
pinball
machines.
Yeah. So the love just extends.
The love extends, yeah.
I love that. How about you, Marty? Anything you're looking forward to in the coming week?
So I have this old, well, it's pretty old. It's more than 20 years old motorhome.
Ooh.
It is the smallest one you can get that the bed's permanently set up. You don't have to make the bed every
I love
night.
that.
So I like that. So I'm going to be all summer I've wanted to do some decorating in there. So I'm going to be working on that, and then we have a family reunion over at our cottage. So we'll be showing up in the motorhome.
Do you like your family?
Most of them.
Okay, then it's mostly fun.
Would you like to name on the air the ones that you don't like? We can give them a shout out.
No comment on that one.
No comment. I love it. Well, that is fantastic. And I just want to say thanks to Beth Milligan and Mardi Link. It's been another great show. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all the platforms at christalfrost.com. You can follow us on social media and subscribe to Currently with Christal Frost literally wherever you get your podcasts. It goes right into your inbox. Just subscribe. It's easy as pie. You can also watch the full show on YouTube and on Facebook. Currently is a Compass Local podcast produced here in Traverse City by Pancake Boy Productions. Thanks to our lead supporter, Golden-Fowler Home Furnishings, in addition to the wonderful West Shore Bank and the coin slot. And speaking of the coin slot, go check out the Jaws pinball machine.
Please do. You'll probably find me there.
We'll see you next week on Currently.